President, the General Assembly has just adopted an important resolution expressing support for Palestine's membership in the United Nations and recommending that the Security Council reconsider this matter favorably. Singapore voted in favor of this resolution after serious and careful consideration. I'd like to explain and place on record the reasons for Singapore's support for this resolution. First, Singapore's support for this resolution is a vote in favor of a negotiated two-state solution at a critical juncture in a very troubled region. Singapore has consistently advocated for and supported a negotiated two-state settlement consistent with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions as the only viable path for achieving a comprehensive, just, and durable solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Both Israel and Palestine have the right to exist and to live in peace within secure and recognized boundaries, free from threats or acts of force. Singapore joins the rest of the international community in calling on leaders of both sides to show leadership and courage and take the difficult but necessary steps towards a two-state solution. The prospect for peace between Israel and Palestine have become even bleaker, and this is precisely why we must do everything possible to cease hostilities and revive efforts to work towards a two-state solution. The heinous terrorist attacks by Hamas on the 7th of October last year brutally killed over 1,200 Israelis and other nationalities, with the taking of more than 200 hostages, many of whom remain in captivity. These attacks cannot be condoned or justified by any history of injustice, enmity, or conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, and Singapore has repeatedly condemned them. In response, Israel has exercised its legitimate right of self-defense. But Israel's military actions have gone too far and caused far too much human suffering and property destruction. The death of around 35,000 Palestinians and the humanitarian disaster in Gaza is tragic. The result of these events has been outrage on both sides, breakdown of the fragile trust between both peoples, and the shattering of any sense of security for both Israelis and Palestinians. As a friend of both sides, we are deeply grieved by this state of affairs. Singapore's vote today reflects our heartfelt desire to see both parties resume direct negotiations in good faith, demonstrating courage to take the tremendously difficult but essential first steps towards a two-state solution and a durable peace. We recognize that this will be a painful and long-drawn process. The work to rebuild trust and restart dialogue must begin now. Both sides have legitimate rights and shared responsibilities, and difficult compromises must be struck through direct negotiations. Secondly, Singapore's support for the resolution is in line with our consistent and long-standing support for the principles of international law and the implementation of all relevant UN resolutions. The General Assembly Resolution 181, amongst other things, divided the mandate of Palestine into separate Arab and Jewish states. The UN Security Council Resolutions 242 and 338 called for the withdrawal of Israel's armed forces from territories occupied in the Six-Day War. Subsequent resolutions have referred explicitly to a two-state solution. Unfortunately, these resolutions have never been implemented. Thirdly, we support the right of the Palestinian people to a homeland. In 1988, Singapore welcomed the Palestinian Liberation Organization's proclamation of the State of Palestine. We did so in the context of a two-state solution. At that time, the Palestine National Council had expressed support for an international conference in accordance with UNSC Resolutions 242 and 338. Most importantly, the PLO explicitly rejected terrorism and recognize the right of the State of Israel to exist. We saw these moves as progress towards a durable solution for this long-standing conflict. Fourthly, in supporting this resolution we adopted today, Singapore reiterates that terrorism has no place in any process leading to a stable and peaceful political solution. Groups, including Hamas, that continue to deny Israel's existence or refuse to renounce terrorism have no place in a Palestinian state. To create the foundations for a lasting peace, we must restore hope and offer the possibility of peace as an alternative to the endless cycle of violence and retribution. As a friend of both Israel and Palestine, we urge both sides to eschew violence and resume negotiations towards a two-state solution with the help and support of the international community. Mr. President, notwithstanding our support in favor of the resolution, Singapore reserves its position on the scope of the annex to the resolution. In our view, any additional rights and privileges to be granted under the resolution must be granted in a manner that is entirely consistent with the UN Charter. This is important, not only in this case, but also for similar future cases, because the UN Charter, which binds member states, provides for the exercise of certain rights and obligations only by member states. I thank you very much for your attention.